SpongeBob and Patrick here. Just kidding, it's Baremones and Glinknar yelling me when I play against SA. We like Tyboy and Blade, but you don't want to see us in that Escalade. Guys, today I've got a little something special for you. Together with the homie Glinknar, the greatest invader of PC, we are bringing you a comprehensive guide on how to invade. In this video, we're going to showcase basics, all the way to try-hard techs and tips. And we're going to cover everything from activity and basic build making, to important invader tools, to how you should be playing depending on the situation you're in. And so the idea with this video is we've tried to split it up into 3 main sections, one of them being for beginner invaders who are completely fresh to the topic, as well as a middle section for people who have experimented with invading, call it, or are somewhat experienced, and then finally some tips and techs for try-hard invaders who would know most of the subjects covered in this video already. And so if you are brand new to invading or relatively new, then I do recommend that you watch the entire thing. However, if you are already experienced with these sorts of things, then I recommend that you take a look at the timestamps and use that as a reference for what you might be able to benefit from in this video. So before we get into the real juice of this video, I just want to have a little section for those who don't invade. Maybe you're watching this because you want to get into it and you've never tried it before. And I want to paint a picture of why everyone, I think, should try it at least, and why I think it is a lot of fun. Now, as you all know, I am primarily a duelist, and in the grand scheme of things, have only really dipped my toes in the water of invasions. However, Glinknar, you are what I would describe as a full-on try-hard invader, though you have also played in tournaments like myself and are a very good duelist. What would you say is the biggest difference between the two in terms of what you get out of it as a player? And why do you think the average player watching this video should give invading a try?
Thanks, Bear. I think everybody should invade. Invasions are probably the most dynamic fun you can have in Elden Ring. You don't know what's gonna happen. Every time you invade, it's something completely different. That you just have to, use your tools that you have, and reach your goal, reach the end. Kill the host. And it's challenging. There's gonna be a lot of things like really bad internet or over levels or something like that. There's gonna be things that are gonna stop you from reaching your goal, from killing that host. And it's just up to you, to just piece it all together and get the job done. Like put in Kobe, like, job finished, job ain't done, job ain't finished. And I also want to say, duels, duels are amazing. It's the best way to get better at the game is, playing seamless, hopping on ladder, playing seamless against good people. I think duels are an amazing way to get better at the game, but I think invasions are just really like on your feet thinking. You have to react to everything. You have to react to 3 people, 2 people, even one person. I don't know if that's really an invasion, but you have to really react. You have to be in the moment. But in duels, it's kind of, you go through the motions. Sometimes it's really fun. Sometimes it's not so fun. Sometimes it's a bad matchup, And in, in invasions, you play at 139, so you have way more build variety. You can use way more stuff than the hyper-optimized duel builds for like Starfist and shit, They're fun. I'm not saying they're bad builds, but, I wish I could use Starfist and Lances, or I could use Great Bow. Great Bow is another fun thing you can do.
So the first thing we need to talk about is, of course, builds. Although you can invade or PvP in general with any build, with invading, optimizing a build is very important because it can be hard to balance good damage and negations with a variety of weapons and tools at a meta level. And this sort of introduces the concept of PvP-oriented builds. You'll see on the screen here a very old clip of me invading from about a year ago, before I got really into build making, and this is just basically a really bad RL90 build. And of course, it works out just fine, but the second I run into a actual gank, even with my skill set, I'm pretty much cooked without some of the tools that we're gonna mention later on in the video. So, as far as activity goes, there's 3 main level brackets where you will find good quality invasions with good activity. And we're talking level 90 with plus 20 or plus 8 weapons, level 125 or mainly 139 with fully leveled weapons, and level 200. Which I don't think is that good personally, but it can be fun once in a while, and generally speaking, level 200 has much less activity than the other 2. However, I do think it's worth noting that if you are just learning how to invade, I would highly recommend starting off with level 90, as you'll be faced with less gank squads and a generally easier experience, and then move on to level 139 as you improve. So I want to talk about Taunter's Tongue just briefly, because if you are new to invading, it's important that you understand just how this mechanic works, as knowing whether or not your host is tongued is going to play a bit of a role in how you play the invasion. So Taunter's Tongue does 2 important things. It allows for a second invader when there is only one host and one cooperator in the world, and it reduces the time between getting invaders for a host. So when they are tongued and you are in a 1v3, as soon as you take down one of the cooperators, you'll be able to get a second invader to help you finish the invasion. It also means that if they don't use the Taunter's Tongue, then it's going to be just you in the world until the invasion is finished. And another important mechanic this allows for is called de-tonguing. A lot of hosts will use the tongue when they have 2 co's, but then as soon as they get an invader, disable it so that you are stuck in that 1v3, sort of bypassing the rules of the PvP. This is somewhat frowned upon, as in other titles like Dark Souls 3, once you enabled the Taunter's Tongue equivalent in that game, it couldn't be disabled, so that it would allow for a more fair PvP for the invaders. To summarize though, when a host is de-tonguing, they are forcing you into unfavorable situations, and when they don't use the tongue at all, you only get 1 chance to win the invasion, and if you fail, they get a 15-minute timer where they can't be invaded again. But for an example, there's been many times where I'm in Discord with a bunch of invaders and one of us finds a greasy little 3-man gank, and we have someone else trying to invade, but then we realize once we've taken down one of the co's, as soon as we got in the world, they turned off the tongue, and they're most likely going to resummon too. So it's important to know, just because there's a lot of hard ganks that will use this mechanic to sort of screw you over.
So, it's no big surprise that when you're going to invade, you need to know how to 1v2 and 1v3. So, the reason why you need to know is because there's no solo invasions, there's no 1v1 invasions. You're never going to be naturally fighting just the host. So, the most common and the most natural invasions are going to be those where they have either 1 summon or 2 summons, or 1 summon and a blue. So, in those situations, how do you play? So, when you're playing against somebody with 1 summon, when it's a 1v2, you want to play the spacing. You don't want to walk into their blender. You don't want to brute force it, because 2 people's DPS is 90% of the time gonna beat your 1 DPS. So unless you have some crazy setup, hyper armor Ash that's gonna one-shot that you know is going to one-shot and that you've set up, it's not really gonna work out for you unless you space. And by space I mean you want to be out of range of them, of their blender, of this area, this kind of like bubble where they can both hit you and both stun you and then both roll catch you. Because once that starts to happen, it's really hard to survive, which is why you have 60 vigor. It's really hard to really make it out of there. So I'm not talking about macro spacing. While it's not a bad idea if you have a golden recall, I'm not talking about macro spacing. Just being in their vicinity so that if they whiff, you whiff punish them. They're gonna try to attack you and you just punish them on the spot on reaction. And you can also punish their Estus with a swap. If you have any swaps that shoot projectiles, or you have any swaps that can have really good root motion, or you're already thinking that they're going to Estus. So being able to punish their mistakes in spacing is something really strong, especially with something that has low recovery, because once you punish somebody, you need to be paying attention to the other player because they're going to try to punish your spacing and your recovery. So BHS is something strong that you can use. Any recovery cancel Ash is strong, but also just roll, you know? Rolling is good. So I'd like to pivot now to 1v3s, which is also very common. So in a 1v3, the blender is way larger and it's way less forgiving. You can get absolutely like destroyed from full with zero input from you. And the only way to avoid it is by playing safe. You don't want to engage the blender. You want to put your head in the blender. You want to make sure you're not getting ownaged by all three of these people at the same time. So you want to create 1v1s. So how do you create a 1v1? When there's 3 people, what do? Well, you have to play the parkour. You have to play the level. You have to know ahead of time where to take these people so that there's PvE to separate them, so that you can then have your 1v1 and beat the PvE, because PvEers are pretty bad at PvP. So you already have a leg up on them for that. So if you can isolate for a 1v1, same with the 1v2 as well. If you can take them to PvE so that their attention is divided and you can have a 1v1, then that's better. You know, if there's a certain parkour that only one of them can do at a certain time, that gives you a chance to hurt only one of them and without the fear of being attacked by another. So fighting multiple people is about isolating and spacing and understanding where you can stand without being punished from full. Because Elden has an insane TTK where there's spells, there's Ashes of War, there's crazy hit stuns, combos that will just blender you from full. So you just have to play safe and isolate and play the level. And that's all I'd like to say about 1v2s and 1v3s. Hey guys, it's Glinknar here again. Just in my inventory planner, this website, inventory.yasu.business, whatever. This is Amelia's, the Elden Ring and inventory planner. This is Amelia's website / Sylvia's spaceship. It's an amazing website. You can just set up all your builds. You can export them to cheat engines super quickly. Whatever you want to build, let's go on this website. It's fucking amazing. But yeah, I just want to talk about stats. Your stat line for your builds when you're making a build. So your stat line, when you're making an Elden Ring build, you want it to be 58 vigor, because 60 vigor if you want. 50. I only go 58 vigor because I kind of need those 2 points to meet requirements on other things. So normally I go 58 vigor. You want to keep base mind. You like. FP in this game is super easy, especially with Starlight Shards. It's super easy to keep topped off, and you'll never really run out of FP with 10 Starlight Shards, so you're fine. You want to keep your endurance. I go 37 standardized across all my 139 builds, but for 139, for 125. You want to have about 35. No lower than 33. 35 is a good number. A little bit higher, 37 is probably your best bet, because it helps you, you know, you can have heavier armors, heavier weapons, you can carry like a soft swap dagger. It's, you know, the endurance is worth it. And then for your damage stats, you want to have just, you want to know what your soft caps are for whatever stat you're boosting. So I'm on a dex build. My soft cap is around 57, 58 for lightning. Around 60, a little bit before 60. So I have 52 dex. My build is based off of having perma millicents, like just millicents. So I'll have 57 most of the time. And then I also want to be able to use Black Flame Protection. So I have 25 faith so that I can swap off my millicents to a faith charm. And I can get 30 faith for Black Flame Protection. So, and then I also have 20 strength. 20 strength is so I can use lances. So I can use lances. And I can use regular great bow, which also scales with your dex. So all my stats are for either min requirements, soft caps, or, you know, to help me carry things like endurance. And when you're making your build, you want to really do that. You want to have your min requirements met. You want to have 58 vigor, no lower than 58 vigor. You want to have 37, no lower than 33 endurance. You want to have 20 strength, 20 dex. So you're going to use a great bow, so you can use regular great bow. You can have a little bit less dex if you have more strength, because Lion Great Bow is only 18 dex, but does have a 24 strength. Does have a 24 strength min requirement, so 18 dex is the lowest if you're on a strength build. But besides that, yeah, and then you just for faith, you want to hit 50. For int, for just like for sacred infusion, you want to hit 50 faith. For lightning infusion, you want to hit like 60 dex. For like heavy, you want to hit like 70. You want to hit like 70 strength. For fire infusion, you don't want to use fire infusion. For int, for magic infusion, you want to have about 50 int. You can go a little bit higher because int swaps scale a lot with int, so it's worth having that extra int. And, you know, because of spells. And then besides that, you know, arcane, you want to hit 50, maybe a little more, because, you know, your sleep halberd, you know, you want to have as much sleep as you can on it, and you want to deal as much poison as you can. You know, 50 is a good number for that. Those are about all the soft caps. Yeah.
When it comes to Invader tools, Great Bow is undoubtedly the strongest and most useful, and it's amazing at two main things. One, being able to confirm kills and chain roll catches from a distance, as it is unreactable until they get about 20 or 30 feet away, and one-shotting or at least heavily damaging groups of people with the Rain of Arrows Asher War. Simply put, in my opinion at least, every invasion build should have at least a page swap to Rain of Arrows, and a Golem Great Bow somewhere in there as well. Next up we have, of course, Endure. And Endure is really useful in a lot of cases, but mainly you're going to want to use Endure on setups like Straight Swords, PSS, and Fist, where you can put out a lot of damage quickly against the PvEers who like to mash a lot. And this can be super important when trying to take down an over-leveled Phantom, as it will level the playing field in terms of how much damage you will take from them when you trade. And it's also generally useful when facing ganks, as they won't be able to chain you while your Endure is active, giving you a chance to roll out. Bloodhound Step is also an almost necessary tool to have on all your builds. Some invaders like Steel prefer to keep the BHS on a soft swap dagger at all times. Personally, I keep a page swap of BHS clean rot thrusting swords on all of my builds, and the main use case for this is either A, escaping blenders, as not only does it give you more distance than a standard roll, but all hit stun can be escaped just slightly earlier with a weapon art than a roll, so long as it's the first time you're being hit. And B, it's also very useful for escaping simply because it gives you access to something called roll on press. And basically, with a standard roll, you need to both press the circle or B button and then release it in order to get iframes. And with something like BHS, you're going to enter iframes the moment you press L2. It's worth noting though that BHS does have less iframes than a roll, so it's only worth using when you need the extra distance or the frame advantage. But basically, most invaders, whenever they get low on health and are getting chased down, they're going to swap to the Bloodhound Step, so that every time the opponent throws out an attack, they gain much more distance than they would by just rolling the attack, and it'll be easier to react to.
So, after this most recent patch in Elden Ring, which is almost a year old, we're 11 months in, a bunch of Ashes of War now have hyper armor and can hold prio over a lot of things on reaction. So, being able to swap to a hyper armor Ash of War is important because you can get all three, whatever, host, and you can do a crazy amount of damage, and it creates space because they have to respect it. They can't trade with it. They have to respect it because you have hyper armor. Stuff like Stormhawk, Waves of Darkness, Spin Slash on the Twin Blade, Spin Slash on any other hyper armor weapon. Those are great examples of the hyper armor Ashes of War that will, like, you can't be stunned at them, so they're just gonna do crazy damage. They also frame trap. They're really good. They're just really good swaps that you need on an Invader build.
I also wanted to get HGS in here, but there isn't much to say. It's just a really good chase down weapon and great for proccing status as well if you want to throw a poisonous mist on it, but I personally don't do this much, but a lot of invaders will have a swap always lined up to an HGS just so when their opponent gets slightly out of range of whatever they're rocking, they have that to catch right back up to them and gain priority again. But yeah, in terms of invader tools, that is about it. Although, there is one we did forget to mention in there.
Hey guys, it's me, Glinknar, chilling out here in the prayer room, at the prayer room grace, my favorite part. And I just want to start off the hard part of this video with hard swapping. No better way to start it off with some hard swapping. So, how do we hard swap? How is it? Well, it's shockingly easy. It's surprisingly easy to hard swap. What you want to do is open your inventory, navigate to what you want to swap to, right? In this case, great bow. Select it, and then once you selected it, you want to hit the inventory button, the options, the escape, whatever button it is, one more time, and then you're out. You're out of the menu, and you can do whatever you want. So, why do we do this? Well, it's better than pressing circle because this hard swapping like this is much slower, and as you saw, I can't sprint when I'm doing that. You don't want to stop sprinting when you're in an invasion, so it's important to hit your options button one more time so you can close your menu faster. And continue to sprint and be able to roll as well once you close your inventory, because when you're in your inventory, you can't roll. So being able to get out of it and begin to roll is important. So another thing you'd want to do, another thing for hard swapping is what you hard swap. Talismans. It's important that you can hard swap to a focus charm. Focus is a stat that is your resistance to sleep and madness. If you're playing against Vikes, if you're playing against Sleep Halberd, you don't want to get Vortex by Vikes and then get an additional extra damage. Sleep and madness are insanely strong statuses. They're some of the strongest in the game, or they are the strongest in the game, and they allow for one-shots that are insane. In 0 to deaths, it's insane. But if you can prevent that, why not? So having a talisman like the Focus Charm, which is also a pretty lightweight talisman, is important to have. So it gives you an additional 120 focus to what you already have, and that can save you. That can stop. That is an additional running R1 from a Sleep Halberd, or an additional like 2 L1s from a Vikes, or maybe even more L1s from a Vikes, and that kind of bricks their setup. If they have to take 3 to 4 running R1s from a Sleep Halberd to sleep you, you have enough time to counteract them, to attack them, to get away from them, to hit them with your own attack. It's all, you know, it's giving you enough time and distance to get away in bolus. You know, having that talisman is important. Another important talisman I want to talk about is your Estus ring, or your Crimson Sea talisman is what it's called in this game. In DS2 it's called the Estus ring. This gives you an additional amount of health per Estus. So in this resource war you have against 3 people, 2 of them have 6 Estus, and 2 of them, and there's 1 person with twice your Estus. You want to be able to have even more than what you had. You want to work off of what little Estus you have, what little Crimson Seed you have, and be able to heal even more, because you're going to be taking even more damage when you're fighting 3 people. You know, being able to swap that tally, it's important. So yeah, and then, you know, having a focus armor swap is important. All those swaps we're going to talk about later, but having all those swaps, really important. I'm glad you guys know now how to hard swap, and, you know, start making inventory, start hard swapping. If you want to know more about it, check my YouTube channel out, check my Twitch out. I stream really inconsistently. I'll get that fixed, but, you know, you ever see me online, you can ask me a question about an inventory. I do build reviews. There's no problem, I'll review any build. But yeah, thank you. I'll give the floor back to Bear.
So I was going to go really in depth on how to use this website here, and I know Ali already talked a bit about this, or I should say Glinknar, I know him as Ali, but I know he went a bit into this on how it can be used, but I want to talk more about why you should be using it specifically for making inventories. It's great for making builds altogether, but in terms of inventory planning and choosing how you want to set up your swaps and your routes, I want to get a little bit into that. It's by Soviet Spaceship, but I tried recording it and it was going to end up taking me about 20 minutes and just not going to fit in this video, but I already have it all recorded, so I'll release that on YouTube as well, and whether it goes up before or after this video, it'll be in the description eventually. But basically, this is just a really good tool for planning your inventories and making your builds, whether it be stats, all of your talismans, and your armor. And it's really useful because if you are on PC, you can load up the game in offline mode or with disable anti-cheat. This guy right here. same thing, I believe, as going in offline mode, but once you do that, you can generate a script for Cheat Engine, and in the video I will release later, I'll show exactly how to do that. But it'll give you everything like you have it right here, and it just speeds up the whole process, and it even gives you access to things like how much you can equip. You can optimize your armor for a given amount of endurance or vice versa. You can calculate damage to find the best infusion or the best infusion while considering buffs. It basically does everything, and it's just a really good tool. If you are on PC, highly recommend you use this when you create your builds. If you are not on PC, it's still very useful just to have this GUI. Like if you're gonna get some crazy complicated G9 Southpaw inventory, definitely worth using just so you can visualize it before you actually do it in game. But I also want to talk about different types of inventories. Personally, I normally do something like this, where I have a page swap for my great bow at the top, then Stormhawk, or if I'm on Int, maybe a Moonveil or a Death Ritual Spear. I have a 5x5 of all my weapons, main hand ones at least. Then I have a page swap of Clean Rots, and then I have my offhands at the bottom. That's one way of doing it. You'll see here in this build, which I believe is a Southpaw, meaning I keep all my main hand weapons in my offhand, and then in my main hand, I'm gonna have this equipped. And that way, no matter what I have equipped for my main hand weapon, finger quotes, I always have this as my swap. In my actual main hand is going to be this. I'm always going to be able to go one right for the Twin Blade Spin Slash, one down for Moonveil, one left for Waves of Darkness, and one up for Fishing or for Riposte. So this is a really interesting way to do it. A lot of people do not like this. Popularized by, of course, G9, the GOAT, but definitely worth giving a try. I had a lot of fun playing with this build, and I had a lot of fun making it, funnily enough. But Ali is going to talk about something called cross swaps, which is another way of building your inventory, but the good thing, again, about this site is you can figure it out yourself. You know, it's really easy to move things around. You can try it out in game. If you don't like it, you can fix it and respawn everything. It's very useful for that. But I can leave it there just because I don't want to take up too much time, but if you are making builds, I highly recommend you use this site, and if you're on PC, I highly recommend that you spawn everything in with the script it gives you. It is very, very simple.
Hey, it's Glinknar here, spinning my cracked out crackhead cross swap inventory. So what you want to do is have your 4 standardized swaps in a cross. So for my Haldag, right, I can swap to an HTS or an R2, and for Stormblade, I can, on my left swap, I can also swap to Golden Great Bow if I swap up, and then if I swap to my right, I have a Twin Blade with Spin Slash, which has Hyper Armor. And we swap down, right, I have Catch Flame, which combos. So for crazy damage on strength. So the cross swap, the beauty of it is I have the same swaps on a whole different setup, and they're both, all 4 of these swaps are strong, are very strong swaps, like HCS, Catch Flame, or not Catch Flame, Flaming Strike, and then Spin Slash on Twin Blade, and then Golden G-Bow. All 4 of those are very strong swaps. Having those on all of my routes, let it be straight swords, let it be pikes, let it be lances, let it be Haldag, having all 4 of those on all of them means that I know no matter what setup I'm using, I have the same swaps. So when you're invading and you want to have you want to have the most amount of mental clarity when you're swapping, so you don't have to side swap, you don't have to think like, oh, like I don't know what exactly I'm on, I don't know what I have to swap to, I don't know, I have to look at my inventory. Side swapping, being in the menus for longer than you have to, is gonna get you killed, because you can't roll while you're swapping while you're in the menus. And in that split second that you could have been out of the menu and rolling, that you are instead sight swapping, you could die. So cross swaps, get rid of that for you, because it's the same 4. It's the same 4 1-tick swaps for all your roots. So you also have your page swaps. Page swaps are good because for your trigger swaps, they're the same for everything on your page. But yeah, that's just me explaining your cross swap.
That is where I'm going to cut it off for today, though. This is arguably the longest video I've ever done, so if you made it this far, hey, shout out to you. I respect you watching it. I hope you learned a lot, whether you are brand new or an experienced invader. Me and the homie put a lot into this, and I'm glad with how it turned out. But for in the future, of course, DLC is coming, so I'm going to try to put in 2 videos a week, or at least 1. I'm working a lot. I'm working 9 days in a row right now, and I just picked up a second job on top of that, so I'm a very, very busy man. However, I'm going to try to get back on that content grind. But lately I have been streaming a bunch. You can catch me at twitch.tv/barebonesboyon. Best Moggers 2024. I've been doing this shit. Do a lot of Pontiff hosting and Invasion. A lot of good fun there. But yeah, let me know what you thought about this in the comments. Personally, I don't know how much more Invasion content I'm going to put out, but a big reason we did this is because Glinknar is going to start doing that, and one of the main things he's going to be doing is a lot of the stuff that we just couldn't fit into this video, like one-offs, little tips and tricks for invading, you'll be able to find on his channel in the future. So I will leave that in the description for you. Definitely go give the homie a sub. And he also streams on Twitch. If you don't know Glinknar, he is a full-time Invasion streamer, or semi-full-time, but some very entertaining invasions over there. And again, yeah, thank you for watching. This one took a little bit of work, and I had a lot of fun making it, but I hope you had just as much fun watching, and again, I hope you learned. Yeah, thanks again. Peace out.